Okay, guys, sorry. My computer's about to die. So I have to go plug it up. Anyway, so our next slide we're looking at is going to be, let's see, slide 20, where it's talking about personal space and touch. Okay, so we all know that different people are different about personal space and being touched. It's very important to understand, first of all, if it's a cultural thing. There are certain cultures that are that way, where men can't touch women, women can't touch men. And so it's really important to be aware of that, first of all, but also to read the body language of your families and your patients. Some do not like to be touched, which is totally fine. It's totally fine. I have a friend that I hug her on purpose to make her uncomfortable. So you just have to learn the group of people that you're taking care of. So our next slide talks about eye contact. Again, it just depends on the patient. It depends on the person. But there are certain cultures that women don't make eye contact with men, men don't make eye contact with women, which is weird for me because I'm always like looking in the eye. I've got to look them in the eye and know that they're hearing me. But in some cultures, that's not okay. So it's important to be aware of that. Okay, gestures. As you can tell, I'm very animated. Again, certain cultures are not that way. It's important to know which ones are and which ones aren't. Um, and you just have to be aware of it. And usually you learn because you do something wrong. So if you have a patient that is of a different culture, one that you're not familiar with, or a different background or heritage, it's important to kind of get a rundown of what's going on and what are some basic beliefs that they have. Okay, healthcare belief systems, y'all. This again depends solely on the patient. I wish that there was a chart that you could flip to that would tell you exactly what each culture believes or what each person believes, um, but there's not. There's not. Western medicine, which is an example of our American healthcare system, some cultures are not fans of. They're more holistic and like more alternative therapies first, as in comparison to ours, where we're give them a pill, cut them open, get it fixed. So you're just really going to have to know your patients and be aware if that's the way that they feel. There are also people who are very what I call granola. Again, that's a stereotype. Granola that are very organic. They want organic food. They want no preservatives, possibly no vaccines for their children. Those are things that you need to assess and know when you're dealing with certain patients and families. Okay. It says, oh, there's a great chart in your book, which you'll be using for your cultural presentation. That there should be some information in Canvas. I need to double check to make sure I put it in there about which culture you're going to be learning about. Sorry. Okay. And then there's always that alternative healthcare. Alternative healthcare methods, again, nutritional. My sister-in-law is gluten free. Like, she doesn't eat any gluten. It's all natural, all organic, no gluten, because of an autoimmune disease that she has. That gluten and those other factors in processed food put her inflammatory system in overdrive, which causes her to have problems with her autoimmune disease. So it's important to know if there's any nutritional requirements. Um, you know, Spiritual methods or anything like that. We have, even though Southern Baptist to the core, born and raised, there may be people who aren't, who want a spiritual healer. American Indians, especially the Choctaw culture, has spiritual healers that they utilize at times. So if you have a patient, for instance, that's dying, it's important to incorporate that into their care and into their plan, because that's what they want, that's what they believe. So it's important to be aware of that. Just because it's not something you would want doesn't mean that you don't need to address that with your patients. I just pushed down on this computer, just kidding. Okay, here we go. Talking again about spirituality and religion, slide 25. Again, it's totally based off of the patient. We have to talk to them, find out if there are any cultural or dietary requests that they have. Is there any religious or spiritual belief that would hinder health care that we would provide? The first one that pops off the top of my head is people who are Jehovah's Witness do not receive blood products. So that's really important, specifically when you're providing care to a patient that's going to have surgery or has leukemia. And so that's a huge, huge, huge thing that you have to think about and have to assess when you're providing care to a patient. Okay. So we're talking again more about spirituality and religion. You just have to talk to your patients. Religions can be monotheistic, polytheistic, atheist, agnostic. Um, they can believe in multiple gods, which would be polytheist, monotheist, one. Atheists believe in no God, and agnostics believe in a higher power. It's important to know what your patient's spiritual beliefs are. That's part of the holistic health care that we desire to provide. We have to accompany and assess their spirituality. Okay, respecting cultural diversity. The biggest thing that we must do in order to respect cultural diversity is to know what our values and beliefs are. It's important to know what we believe, why we believe what we believe, and understand who we are. Okay, and when we understand who we are and we see what beliefs we have, it's easier to be open to other cultures because you don't feel quite as threatened by them or them thinking that you're stupid or dumb or whatever. And so that's really the biggest thing. I encourage each of y'all to take some time to self-reflect. What do I believe? Why do I believe it? Do I have prejudices? Do I have biases? Do I stereotype a certain group of people? And just to know where you stand is the biggest thing about cultural diversity and respecting cultural diversity. Because once you understand who you are, it's a lot easier to be open to others. Everyone adopts beliefs and forms a pattern of behavior based on culture, ethnicity, race, life experiences, spirituality, and religion. And healthcare workers must learn to respect those differences. Patients can refuse you as a healthcare provider, but you can't refuse patients. That's just not part of our ethical code of conduct as healthcare providers. We have to provide care to everyone. So skills and interventions, cultural assessment. There are lots of different cultural assessments available online. You can Google them. You need open-ended, focused questions. Sometimes yes/no questions are appropriate, but open-ended questions are usually the ones that are the best for finding out what patients believe. You have to form trust with your patients. I have worked really hard to form trust with y'all by telling y'all I'm really not sure how this whole little teaching gig works. But we're going to get through it together. We're going to learn together, and we're going to grow together. And that's the same way with our patients. If you're honest with them, I don't understand a lot. I don't know a lot about your culture. Please help me understand. How can I provide the best care to you? And they'll tell you. They'll tell you. Okay, here's some mnemonics to use. I thought were really, really, really cool. Um, I'm sorry, y'all. It's 8 o'clock. It's almost past Mema's bedtime. Got about 30 minutes left. Certain mnemonics, learn, respect, ethnic, Clara, are always to really help us process through talking to our patients. Listen, explain, acknowledge, recommend, negotiate. You know what you need from the patients know what they want, and come up with a good, solid negotiation. Somewhere in the middle always tends to work better. Respect, start a rapport, have empathy for your patient, support them, form a partnership, explain, know about their culture, and build trust. Ethnic is explanation, treatment, healers, negotiate interventions, collaboration, and Clara, claim, listen, affirm, respond, add. Again, when you're dealing with a patient or a person that you don't know much about their culture, that you have biases and stereotypes towards, building that trust is the most important thing for you to do. And the best way to do that is letting them know what you don't know. Okay, so that you can start that communication and that discussion to make sure that you expand your knowledge base about different cultures and different beliefs. Okay, so here's just a cute little picture. It just talks about clinicians assessing, making sure that the patient's got recall and comprehension, and it's a whole circle where the clinician explains a new concept, the clinician assesses whether or not the patient understands, the clinician clarifies and tailors the explanation to the patient's needs. The clinician assesses patient recall and comprehension, and the patient recalls and comprehends. It's so very, 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 very important when we're providing care and specifically patient education to our families that they understand what we're saying. If we send a sweet little Hispanic family home with English instructions on how to manage their diabetes, do you think that they're really technically going to understand everything that they're supposed to do? No, they're not, because English is not their first language. Spanish is. Um, Having a dietitian that comes in and talks about McDonald's and Subway and how to look at carbs and how to meal plan based on a typical Southern diet is not going to have a lot of success with that Hispanic family, because they have a Hispanic type of diet. They eat a lot of corn. A lot of their stuff is cooked different. Corn is the base of most of their food, whereas flour is ours. So it's really important to make sure that you pick what's right for your families. Okay, think ahead, think outside that box. Okay, to what's going to be best, and you want them to teach back to you, just like I get y'all to do. I ask y'all questions. I elicit responses from y'all to make sure you're comprehending what I'm telling you. I test y'all to make sure that y'all are taking in the information that I'm teaching you, which we won't talk about our last test. Anyway, so moving on along to almost to the end. We've got 2 slides left. Y'all have been so great. This has been a long lecture, and I apologize, but I think it's so very important for us to talk about. I love this idea that the motivation of a healthcare professional is to want to, not to have to, engage in the process of becoming culturally competent. As a healthcare provider, you take an oath to do no harm, and part of that do no harm is diving deep into what you don't know, whether or not it's medicine, nursing, psychology, physical therapy, occupational therapy. We have to dive in to our patients' cultures in order to understand what's going to work best for them. Their quality of life depends on us having a great understanding of their culture and how to utilize that culture and that support system to better their health. Okay, and then the last thing I think is very interesting. I knew what core measures were, but I didn't understand why we did them. I just thought it was to provide better care. But core measures y'all will learn about in 8 years when y'all finally get out into the workforce. Our core measures in healthcare are key indicators that people have noticed for healthcare disparities. In pediatric, it's asthma and flu and pneumonia. And for asthma, we had certain things that we had to hit in order to make sure the patients had everything that they needed. The same thing for the flu. Flu is a core measure. Everyone, if you were in the hospital, you had to be offered the flu vaccination because it's so very important. Just like you, I'm going to tell you, go get your flu shot. It's covered by your health insurance. Medicaid covers the flu shot. All private insurances cover the flu shot. It's free. It's free. It's free. And so very, very important. Let's see what else it says down here. Oh, I love this. It says, when policies impede the delivery of effective care, you and your colleagues must advocate for policy change. The world is ever changing. The United States of America is a vast and complex grouping of cultures and heritage backgrounds, family dynamics. We must do everything within our power to provide the highest level of care for our patient. And if you notice that there is something that hinders you from providing that care, you must. We can apply that to our environment here at Germantown. If you notice that there's a practice or a something that we do that impedes cultural diversity and cultural sensitivity, we've got to do something to make it different. That's our goal as healthcare providers, as those who want to be in healthcare. We have to start now learning to advocate for each other, our peers, our families, our patients, in order to become the best at what we can do. So even though this lecture has been super long, and some of y'all may have even fallen asleep, it is so important when we think about cultural diversity and how to be the best healthcare providers, the best people we can be, to be open to other cultures and know ourselves. So I encourage y'all to do that. So I hope y'all had a great afternoon with me. Again, the PowerPoint is in Canvas if you don't already have it pulled up. All the information about your culture presentations that you should be ready to prepare and present on Friday will be in Canvas right now. When you're watching this, it'll be there. To make sure it's in there, to make sure y'all have everything that you need. But anyway, if you have any questions about what you need to present on Friday, feel free to email me, amclain@madison-schools.com. And Mr. McCool, I hope they have been super awesome for you and so kind and quiet. Love y'all, and I'll see y'all soon.